not so much. But there's definitely something coming. Can you feel it? It's been watching us for a while. Talking to us, influencing our decisions, making art for us. Hell, I even heard Wendy's wants to hire it to take your late night burger runs. Guessing from this, you can probably guess what I'm talking about. AI. Now, I know this is not a new subject matter to talk about. In the last 6 months alone, we had this big boom of technology, from ChatGPT to Stable Diffusion, Dream AI, and about 100 other things. However, all these big leaps forward made me wonder, could AI animate? And I don't mean moving from A to B, I mean traditionally animate, with all 12 principles, animate in 3D and 2D. And my first thoughts of this topic were, yeah, probably, maybe. And that uncertainty bothered me. The more I looked into it, the more questions I had. So, as an average animator who's overweight, has bags under his eyes, and is addicted to caffeine, I decided to try to find out. With a basic knowledge of AI, I wanted to talk to people in the field of animation and get to know what people thought and what they believe could happen in the near future. Then, talk to some experts in AI and see if these concerns or theories had any validity to them. My name is Alex. Plant your assets in front of your screen, turn those ears on, and let's find out. Is this the boogeyman crawling up our beds, or just Sully trying to say hi? Is this a strange monolith towering before us, or a new tool to bring about human revolution? Is this a friend or a foe? Is it Judgment Day, or did we just fall asleep in front of the TV again? I don't know. But let's find out together in Animator versus the Machine.
Commencing. Begin.
All right. Today we have two very green animators who just started their wonderful careers. We have Zoe and Jen. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Perfect. So let's start with Zoe. Tell the phantom viewers out there a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name's Zoe.
Yeah, good start.
Yeah. I am a junior animator at Sphere Animation. This is my first job outside of graduating as a college graduate, I guess.
Yep, just out of school.
Graduating as a
Yep.
college graduate, yeah. Prior to that, I was mostly just doing either illustration or freelance animation for fun, and so it's been a very good introduction into studio work. So, yeah.
Nice. And what about you, Jen? Tell the viewers who you are.
Yeah, like Zoe, I am. This is my first production, and I recently graduated just a few months ago from Herzing College. Prior to that, I did not study art. I studied science for 6 years, so did a great changeover in the industry, and now we're fully in it. So that's great.
Perfect. So the question I ask everyone, because everyone seems to have a different answer, is, let's start with Jen. What is AI?
So AI, artificial intelligence, basically nowadays it's kind of machine learning where you are using algorithms and incoming fluxes of new data, and you're trying to replicate human learning or human understanding, or whatever topic you're discussing. You're trying to become more efficient in what you're trying to produce. Without the use of human interaction. So yeah, that's my understanding of it.
Zoe, is that a similar type of thing for you, or?
Yeah,
different?
it's a pretty similar thing. It's mostly taking like previously known things done by humans and then programming that or coding it into artificial intelligence that can then use that said learning and either amplify it or improve it, whether that's by speed, quality, or both. So
as people that have just started off their animation journey into this world, Do you guys fear or are concerned about AI possibly spreading its tentacles into the animation industry? And do you think it'd be affecting your jobs? Anyone?
Okay. I wasn't sure.
First come, yeah, sorry, first come, first serve.
Okay. I think it's very gray area as of right now. I think it'll continue to be gray area. There's no black and white in the sense of whether or not it'll destroy jobs or create more. But like for an animator, I think I don't have too much fear with it taking my job because there is an aspect of human touch and passion and soul that goes into animation and being able to express that at least at this time AI cannot replicate. So for me and the near future, I'm like good. I'm not worried. I'm good. I'm not worried.
What about you, Jen?
Yeah, it's been interesting because as I've been talking to more of my animator colleagues, they've all asked the same thing. Oh, like, what's your opinion? And as a new animator, I don't think I've really had a change in heart and how I felt about it, which is I don't think it's really going to destroy any of my jobs. I've never been fearful of it. I definitely, from seeing things online, have felt that there are some jobs where AI will definitely affect it more,
Right.
but pertaining to our job specifically, I don't think it'll be as big of an issue as some people think it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like currently I think like the ones that are I guess threatened would be people that not people that animate in harmony, right? With like it's just a sophisticated puppet, right? But people like background painters, character designers, where an AI you can just teach it, Stable Diffusion. You can just get like, oh, here's my sample size of my characters. So you do them the full character turnaround, and I want, this is the range I want. So you like happy expression, like no higher than this, and then sad, like no lower than this, and I want, confused, and you give it like 50 images of what a confused look like, and it could possibly do it. And I've seen it done on YouTube where someone did like character sheets, and I was like, fuck, that sucks.
Yeah.
So
you're like, damn it, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, I remember reading an article about a new Japanese short called Boy and Dog. I got this huge outrage because an AI was used to paint and redraw the entire backgrounds, and the studio was like, "Oh, it was because of labor shortage." But a lot of artists were like, "No, you're stealing jobs." So my question to you is, do you see a use for it, or is this more just inviting the devil at dinner type of thing, where it's like you're inviting him to your table, and once he's there, you're kind of cooked? What do you think, Zoe?
I think it's
a tricky call, right?
It's a very tricky situation or call, I guess, because like if I think of like the Japanese example that you were giving, like the reason of labor shortages or whatever, it's like, well, they're not getting paid enough in the first place. Like no wonder they're finding cheaper options, which then is just one bad for like any artist living in Japan because people are taking the cheap alternative, which then puts them out of the job instead of getting like a highly skilled individual and caring about paying them a livable wage. In terms of it coming into our lives, I think there is a use for it. Again, I think it's more specific with things like Harmony and Toon Boom animation, especially rigged animation, whether it's in Animate CC, Harmony. I'm trying to think. After Effects, I think, also uses forms of... I don't know if they have AI specifically, some of my friends are starting to try it out on Blender and stuff. So I mean, it can have some useful aspects that make it a lot simpler and quicker to figure out, rather than having to either code something and then apply it each time that you need to add a specific movement or texture or like in between or something that's like hyper specific that could easily take you a few hours, then reduced to a couple of minutes. In that case, I think it's useful. In the case of more like taking over, yes, hypothetically it could, but at the same time, should it? Because and that's where it's just like it's so conflicting with where you would stand, because it's like, do you care about the well-being of people because you are also an artist and understand the hardships and want to continue and help make that industry thrive off of the passion and soul of animation or illustration? Or are you going to be that like high up multi-millionaire boss that's like, yeah, it's a cheaper thing, so like might as well. So
Right.
yeah.
This is what I want to talk to you guys, because you guys have this. You guys just out of school, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go." And like, I want to make this beautiful. Like, we were all inspired by animation at some point to get into. That's why we got into this business, right? Like for me, it was watching reruns of the Bugs Bunny and Tweety show at like 5 p.m. on global TV in Toronto. I was like, "Oh, this is the shit." But then, finding out years later that it was just reruns. I thought this was like a new television show. I'm like, who is Daffy Duck, and why can I not have him all the time? But I don't know. It's part of me thinks like you got to stop thinking with your artsy hat and start thinking from a business point of view. Because if you had to choose between a production that costs $500,000 versus $200,000 with some servers, and the public can't it's good enough for the public, that's when you might get the swing. It might swing in that direction. What do you think, Jen?
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of kind of like the cost side of things, coming from clients, producing shows, and all these things, it's like, I mean, I think at a certain point, AI will be able to, from like, for example, a department where you have character designers, right? I think it will definitely change how character designers are hired or how many are working, because I don't think now they're going to fully take over, but their daily tasks might change. Like it could be really useful to like get quicker
Okay.
drawings, and then the designers would kind of do the nitpicking to change those things based off what clients want, what Zoe was saying with like Harmony, the program that we're using, it's like I feel like AI will kind of help with the tools that they keep putting out in their new versions to make animation quicker. And here's the thing, it's like if animators can use these tools more efficiently, their animations will be done faster, production will go faster, the cost will be cheaper anyways. Yep. I mean, who knows? Maybe in the long run, and AI will just be able to produce an entire show without anybody. But I feel like for now, I mean, I think it's more just like from our animation side, it'll just be kind of upgrading the tools for us to kind of get better animation style faster, without completely eliminating our jobs.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, yeah, because like at the end of the day, like the enemy of animation is time. Right? There's never enough of it. You always want to make these like big, massive. Like I want to make this my money pot scene, where like this is the thing that everyone's going to use in trailers and promos. Everyone has that same mentality, right? We all go into it thinking like this is my magnum opus, and the reality is like, no, you're doing commercial art at the end of the day. Right? It's to sell something. Like that's the soul crushing thing about it, where you're like, oh, at the end of the day, like you're trying to sell something. So like it's always been that way, from like Fred Flintstone selling cigarettes on his TV show to Transformers, like, and He-Man being like, buy our action figures. Look at these cool toys, kids. So yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see if something like Toon Boom integrates some form of an AI or like a smart learning type of thing algorithm. But let's say theoretically, you get an AI and you'd be like, all right, this is the style of my show, and this AI kind of guides, say, new people like yourselves. Like this is the show style, kind of like acts like a mini, like a sub supervisor, essentially. Would that be taken away from you being as an animator, or is that just a new part of, or is it just a tool? Because if this little tool is telling you like this is the style, no, nor like this, nor like this, and the computer's doing like if the computer's showing you how to do it, are you still animating, or is it, is the computer doing most of it? Oh, thinkers.
Yeah, I mean, the definition of animators or our job description might change eventually because of it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we'd still be animating, but it's hard to really confirm that until it kind of gets integrated in. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, because like I always thought like once AI breaks through that, I know a lot of people are like, no, it'll never break through that 2D. Like you just can't do it. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do it now. Like you give it time. Like no one thought it can draw hands, and like yeah, I can't because it's duplicating both sides. And that's why you get those weird like 9-digit monstrosities of flippers. But like once it figures out like, oh yeah, it has one thumb and 4 fingers, and this is how we go, and it starts understanding anatomy, then it's like, oh shit. Or someone teaches it like cartoon physics. And it's like, oh, that's some. And it's like it's not that's not much of a leap. And everyone I've talked, I give them that synopsis. And they're like, nah, and then they're like, the head bobs get slower, and you're like, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
So
I know, and it's kind of exponential too. Like I feel like right now AI, it's like we're kind of teaching it as a toddler when I see it coming with art stuff, right? Like you can get some really cool animations, but they're like little things wrong with it. You're like, oh, that's so cute, it's doing great. But it's like as we keep feeding it more suggestions, it's just gonna get better. So it's like I can just see the ramp up being pretty crazy. But yeah,
I saw someone on Discord. It was like complaining, like, "Oh, AI art has this bad habit now where it's learning from bad AI art." I'm like, so like people learning from bad people art. To me, I was just like, "What's the difference?" It's the same. It's like people learning,
right.
be like someone learning art by only drawing Sonic fan fiction. It's like it's still really bad art. It's still like cringy and a little weird, but eventually it's gonna find the right path if it really wants to do art. It's just like a course correction, right? You're like, oh, don't study this. Go study more of this stuff over here. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky little thing. So my other question is, if AI is implemented, do you see jobs being changed, such as let's give a theory that AI can animate in 2D, and its job is to animate crowds and like little clip it scenes, like grabbing a cup, like things where like you just like they're for an animator, like they're throwaway scenes that like bump up your quota or whatever. If you have, I don't know if you guys have quotas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that's how the studio works still. Yeah. So they bump up your quota or not. So they're like, okay, instead we'll put, because we're saving money on an AI that can do all these extra scenes, we'll give you salary, but you have to teach the AI you essentially become the supervisor to the AI.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see that as problematic or just a new phase in the job?
I mean, let's be honest, no one likes animating crowd scenes anyway.
So that's why I presented it. It's like if someone could do it, it'd be yeah. But it's like, oh.
Yeah, your computer runs hot, there's more crowd. It's just it's never a good time. So I mean, in a certain sense, it's like the positive side to it is just that, if you can remove just kind of the tedious tasks, the ones where like it'll get glossed over in the background in the big production of things, it's like, and if the animator can just take that time, that's not kind of, I don't want to say wasted, but take that time and just put it to something where they can learn how to just become a better animator in the more important aspects. I mean, I think that's also just great. I mean, it may, and I don't necessarily think it'll remove the amount, it'll take away the numbers of how many new animators are hired.
Right.
Because but I think it'll definitely help with just getting rid of all of those other scene aspects that people just don't want to do.
Because like if you're gonna be
know?
honest, like there are scenes where you just don't want to do them because they're either annoying or they take up too much time and they're not. You're just like, oh, these are just like I remember I had a shot. It was like a giant. It was people walking in a mall. It was like 30 people walking
Mhm.
across, and I was just like, I don't really want to do 30 walk cycles, and they all have to look different.
Yeah.
Because like if they all look
Yep.
the same, you're like, I can tell they all look the same, and it looks bad. It looks really robotic.
Mhm.
So like you need a human touch to be like, no, change this one. I make this more like an old lady. You can't just have her like walk up. And you're like, oh, okay. So yeah, it's okay. So you don't think it would affect how many people would be hired necessarily? Just the job would change, maybe, or like the description would change, or maybe that's the new entry level.
Yeah,
position.
I mean, I don't have enough statistical knowledge on the, on how many new animators coming in versus out.
Sure.
But I mean, we're at an early enough stage where I know that's probably not being affected.
Not now.
Aside from other things happening, but I mean, let's just cross our fingers.
Oh yeah, right now.
See what
Yeah, right
happens.
now it's just me playing Chicken Little. Like, look, do you not see it? It's right over there.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna ask a point. I forgot. Oh, will come back to me later.
Yeah.
So if AI is learning, what is the difference between, let's say, an AI animating and learning from us versus AI art? Is it theft from learning from you, or you know what I mean? Because the source,
Yeah.
so the source of it, like the source of its information, is coming from your animation, right? But your animation at the studio is not necessarily your animation. Like you don't, it's not yours. You know what I mean? Like you don't own the copyright to it.
Right. I mean, I didn't do a lot of kind of like single art pieces for a while as much as Zoe did. And so it's kind of a tricky situation. There's been a lot of discussion whether or not AI is just, it's going to be theft but at this point in time, it's like, what is original anymore? It's just everyone is learning from everybody's others art styles, tweaking throughout history, all these things. So it's like, yeah, I don't necessarily think it's theft.
Right.
It'll definitely, I think, affect a lot of people who are doing
Commission
just
work.
general art commission. Exactly. And that's why, Zoe might have a bit more of an opinion on this, because she's definitely worked through that.
Yeah. What do you think, Zoe?
Connection
I mean,
established.
from a personal standpoint, like if I were to look at quote unquote my animation in a studio, it would more be in the setting of watching the show I worked on or a feature film that I worked on and be like, those are my scenes, I did that, rather than like, this is mine, I own this, because technically I don't. When it comes to like my personal stuff, like if AI were to try and replicate that, yeah, I think I'd be a bit more conflicted. It could also be because I am very integrated with social media and have like a kind of hefty following through my TikTok and Instagram just because of my animation and art. So, if I were to see accounts that were somehow replicating that and it's clearly my art, or like very heavily inspired, which I have seen in the past, but it's like kids tracing it, and it's like I'm not gonna lash out on them, but it's like their form of learning or whatever. But if they were to like take my name, say this is Zoe Bop's animation and I'm like, I've never touched this, seen it before, then I would be like, okay, what's going on? That's a bit concerning, because instead of people coming to me and asking for like commissions or just talking about my art and interacting with those people who like my stuff, it's like you're following someone who I don't even know, and is copying and kind of like stealing my style in a way that is profiting them. So in that case, yeah, I become a bit conflicted. It's also in the sense with like illustration as well, and a bunch of my friends who are professional illustrators, and seeing how AI is taking that kind of inspiration from a specific style and then recreating something completely on their own. Like, yeah, sure, it's fun for a trend, but I guess to an extent coming into a more business standpoint, like rather than going to the artists that they normally support, or let's say someone who knows that this artist is successful, takes that said art and then again profits off of it rather than the original creator. um, it's just so conflicting, because it's like, where does that line get drawn between this is their art, or well, it's like it's in their style but they didn't draw it, so technically it's mine, like.
Yeah.
And also it makes me think, hey, there's this huge debate about this individual photo that was taken by, I think, a monkey.
Mhm.
And it's like, is it the monkey's photo or is it the photographer because it took it with their camera? And it's that same thing where it's like, is this technically their art or is it the AI's? And where does it lie in the sense of you being able to claim it as your own?
Right.
So it's always very gray area for me when it comes to that, because I can definitely see the benefits of it, where, like, let's say I wanted to improve on my style and then I used AI to see what I could. I'm like, oh, okay, like this is what I totally envisioned, but I just don't currently have the skill to get there. But it's in my style, it's how I would want to see it, and then I can then use it as a learning tool to help me improve, in comparison to someone using it and like taking advantage of someone's skill and time and talent.
Yeah.
So I've always been a very indecisive person. Like, you don't ask me where I want to eat because I will not know. And it's the same with like AI. So
To be fair, a lot of people I've talked to, except for maybe one so far, has been very much in the same mindset as you. Like, maybe not. I don't know. Like, a good question I always ask them is like, okay, is Bugs Bunny theft? Because it stole a lot of jokes and antics from like Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin. Is it theft or inspiration? Right? That's like,
I would say it's inspiration.
yeah, you would say it is? Okay.
I mean, maybe that's biased, but like,
Yeah, because
I like both of them, so.
Right. But that's what I mean. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's the.
I feel like if it's not.
No,
Oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go
No,
ahead.
go ahead, Jen. It's all good.
Yeah, it's a tricky line, but it's like, as long as it's not like a continuation where everything is like down identical and you're taking in other little aspects from things that you've learned, then it's not necessarily just complete theft. It's just inspiration, but which is why I think a lot of TV shows haven't had a problem with it being like, oh, this is like a huge ripoff or just another version of whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you can see little bits of this and a little bits of this show, and they're all, and there's so much content now that it's like there's going to be so much overlap.
Right. So like even TV shows where it's like, like notoriously are like the CW like superhero shows are notorious for just like ripping off past content from comic books. They're like, look, it's new, and it's like, it's not new. It's just the same shit that was told like in the 80s, the 90s, and whatever. But there's so much of it, even like movies and animated movies, that like it starts to just become white noise, right? And so my fear is like there's gonna be this, once AI cracks that barrier and it's like, look, I can animate properly, there's gonna be like this fucking tsunami of just white noise just gonna flood the market and just be like,
It's like-
oh. Yeah, go ahead,
it
Zoe.
makes me think. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Zoe. Very Canadian of us.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure
mate.
there.
Yeah. Like something that I've discussed before is the whole concept of big corporations and taking that as a purely profitable opportunity, where you think of channels like Cocomelon and the types of things that they're putting out on a daily like they'll put out 5 videos a day, which is just like crazy, and you can clearly see that the quality is not there, but it's a lot of quantity and profit off of it. So I think that type of quote unquote white noise is definitely gonna
Oh yeah,
from.
There's always gonna be people that are gonna try to find the easiest track to success, right? Like Cocomelon is like, all right, basic tweens, basic, very very floaty animation where it's like everything feels like it's in water. You're like, oh, okay, what the fuck's going on? But like kids love it because it's fucking colorful and it's good enough. And you're like, okay. You know what's crazy about Cocomelon though? I know. The artist, try as a parent watching that like over and over and over again, like 20 times a day. You're like, fucking kill me now. Can we watch like Paw Patrol? At least it's animated competently. You're like, okay, at least there's some antics and it's not floaty all the time. But Cocomelon and all the different variants there are. I think there's like a European one. There's like but I'll tell you some fun facts about Cocomelon. Look it up sometime. It's really sketchy shit because the studio just exists somewhere in Florida, and that's all you know. There's no owner. There's nothing. You're like, what? It's some like a weird conspiracy shit. Oh, that's weird. I remember looking it up one day because I was like, oh, what? I was like, my daughter was watching it, and I'm like, okay, I've seen this episode for like the 20th time singing about your ABCs. I don't want to watch this anymore. So I looked up like Cocomelon. Like, who does this? Who does this horrible, repetitive shit? Like, good for them. You're making your money, but I can't. It's like an ice pick to the head. And I trying to look at the studio, and it was like, oh, the founder is this person. And you're like, okay. And then there's no studio attached to it. It's like a Moonbug Entertainment, which is a British company, but
I would guess it's outsourced, no? Like outsourced animation?
I assume so. Because it's like the studio owns it is in Florida. And it's like Treasury something Entertainment. And then you have a British company associated with it, which I'm assuming is the outsourcing animation company. But then that's it. It's very because Cocomelon doesn't have credits. So you're like, oh, no, okay. That's sketchy. There's no producer or anything. I'm like,
Interesting.
Okay.
Just unanswered questions. Oh my god.
It's just some weird Netflix thing.
Well, we can find imagine a few years from now we just find out it was AI the whole time.
Oh my god. It was his beta phase. It just broke out. It was just making children's nursery
Cocomelon was the
rogue.
the hub of where it all started.
Yeah, it just watched on repeat Caillou and tried reinterpreting that. And it came out with Cocomelon. You're like, oh god, it's all looping back. Oh fuck! All right. So the last question I have is: do you guys see a place for this AI at all in the now or in the future?
Yeah. I mean, I it's not if I see it, it's just a matter of when, I think, because it's not going to go away no matter how many people protest it or how many artists protest it, because there are aspects that do affect the creative field negatively, but I mean there are also aspects that could easily help it. So it's I can see it working into new animation programs. I mean, you think of when Harmony first came out or when Flash first came out, how crass it was and then how it's improved now. How does that get even better from here? Probably is going to have something to do with AI, I would assume. So I guess it's more... Oh,
go ahead.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. It's all good.
No.
It's all good there, buddy.
No worries, eh. I think I like, depending on studios and production and how they want to go about things will definitely depend, because at the end of the day, like, AI isn't going to apply for the job. It's dependent on who hires them, what the studio wants to do. So in that case, like, even just where you want to work and seeing whether or not, like, you want to incorporate that and how much will definitely play a factor in the future. So it's just more understanding how to coexist with it rather than fight it, because it's here and it's not going away. So
Yeah. What about you, Jen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of excited to see what comes up from it. Like, once again, it's an inevitable thing. Like, AI is going to be integrated into every part of everyone's life at some point. And in terms of our jobs, it's like, if I enter a new production, I'm just waiting for the day where I come in for the introduction meeting. They're like, hey, we have this like new feature where it's going to help eliminate your tasks of doing these little things so that you have more time to get to the more important tasks. So I'll be like, oh, that's great. That's just more time for me, less time just getting frustrated at my computer crashing and having to deal with like crowd scenes or I don't know, something.
Yeah.
But it's also in the sense going to be great for like new artists. You know, it's going to give them a lot of options to kind of like explore more creativity, makes things a little bit more accessible on the learning front and on tool when you're actually doing art stuff. So it's like, I think that's great. Yeah, keep it on the positive side of things. And
I mean,
yeah.
Now that you mention that, it does make me think, like, in terms of accessibility, let's say you don't have access to someone like a supervisor or someone who can give you revisions, that has that knowledge, and AI has that, like, it's been programmed to a sense where it's like, can give you suggestions, kind of like when you're learning a new game and they'll have the little pop-up bar on the side where it's like, I suggest standing further away from this enemy because their long range attacks aren't effective from the, like, those types of things. But coming to animation where it's like, AI can then be that little pop-up and be like, hey,
You're
maybe
essentially
you shouldn't.
You're essentially suggesting like the AI animation version of Clippy from like WordPress or WordPro.
I was just
Yeah.
thinking
Pretty
that.
much, yeah.
Just like, hi, I hear you're having troubles. Can I help?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
But I mean, like,
you're
it
not
does
wrong.
sound-
I could see
yeah.
I could see something like that happening where it's like,
'Cause
if your
you're a
supervisor
very
says
hands-on
is in a
learner.
meeting, like if your supervisor in
Yeah.
a meeting away from his desk, they could just like click a button and be like, all right, when I'm away from my desk, AI bot, AI bot, what's called Bob, is going to take over, and he will give you like, all right, these are your tasks, and this is what you like. You have to say, this person, this is their scenes, and this is what I want from them, and it'll like give you, it will understand like the style of the show and stuff like that. And so like I could definitely see something like that happening.
Yeah.
Which
Well, considering they have like a whole animation Bible, if they're
Right.
able to learn and understand that, they can point out things that even your supervisor might not catch. And
Yeah.
depending on time and scheduling, like either that AI will immediately fix and adjust it, or they'll just point it out. Because it's one thing where it's like, how much time can you spend on a scene? When is it time to be like, okay, it's not perfect, but I can move on? To then being like, okay, I've done as much as I can with still being able to meet my quota. Let me click this AI, get those little
Ooh.
nippets.
No. I know. I agree with you.
I'm
just
saying
like,
at the end of the scene, because I
Yeah,
still,
No, yeah.
I would like to say my ego isn't too big, but like I have a lot of pride with my animation, and I don't want to be like, when I show someone what I worked on, then I'm like, but actually, I didn't do half of this. Like, none of this is my work. I'm passionate about showing the stuff that I do and proud of it.
Yeah.
And I want to be like, yeah, I took like 4 hours to do this, and I did it well. So
Yeah, exactly. Like when you're like, a fixer hasn't touched your scene, that you can notice. You're like, oh my god, this is my work. You're like, it looks amazing,
right?
Yeah.
It's so
you have that
it's
pride
so
moment. You're like,
like
it's so endearing.
well, yeah.
But then like you said, like if you're crunch time comes and they're like, it's a slippery slope in my opinion, where it's like it's that balancing act, right? It's like it can be super helpful, right? But it can also go the other way, where it's like crunch time comes, you hit animate Bob, and then Bob will just animate that fucking scene for you because we got deadlines to hit.
I mean, I see it more in like a small thing. Like you do your posing, you do your anim, and like with our show, there's a seam line on the opposing shoulder that doesn't always connect the whole way through, but it needs to. And either you forget or just something happens to be able to be like, oh, right, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, yeah, it's pros and cons. Pros and cons.
Oh, for sure.
It's interesting times. And I don't remember what I was going to say before, but
sorry.
I want to ask you.
No, I remember now. No, I remember. It was, if you had right now, how long do you think ChatGPT and Stable Diffusion have been around? If you had to guess.
Years.
Like active for the public.
Oh, for the public.
For the public.
I mean, probably somewhat of it, like probably a few years, but not everyone. Because like it's like once the ball gets rolling, that like, oh, this is available, everyone gets on it. But I feel like it's been around for years. Maybe just hasn't been as good or as marketed. But yeah.
Again, considering how active I am on social media, I didn't really start seeing it flourish until like maybe a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago. Like recently, especially within these past few months, I'm not trying to expose how much screen time I have on my phone, but there are these new trends where people will use AI filters to see what they would look like in The Last of Us, Avatar, Anime, Barbie, and I've seen that skyrocket in trending in the past few months. Just in the few months, and it keeps like getting better and better. Because I remember about a year ago, or at least when the new Avatar movie came out, there was a filter to make you look like the Avatar. Navi, thank you. But now like within the past week or so, there's an AI filter that is infinitely better and does not make you look like a freak of nature.
So I can tell you the answer. I know the answer.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So ChatGPT has been around for 7 months. And Stable Diffusion and all that has been around for 11 months. It's not even a year.
Okay.
So kind of close to
you're close. Yeah. But that's what
maybe spending 8 hours on my phone a day is okay.
It's research, okay?
It's research.
Yeah.
Well, that's my point. Is like people think it's been around a lot longer than it has, but it's done all this. Like it's drastically changed everything in a lot of different fields in like that short amount of time. Like if you get a person like change the world in that amount of time, probably wouldn't happen. At least in technology wise, probably wouldn't happen. It'd be probably like years of development and all that stuff. After release, like the iPhone didn't change life for like maybe 2 years because it was like the slow application of apps.
But the iPhone 13 is coming out.
No, but I mean, like when even when the iPod came out, like when the iPod came out, it was like, the fuck is this? And people were like, okay, it's kind of cool, but it was like really expensive. Like, oh, that's a rich person thing. And then it got more affordable. People's income went up. And then it was like, then it just changed everything. Then you had those Apple commercials where it was like, it showed like acts like white stripes playing on like the black, the red color, and they're all black silhouette. These are the coolest ads ever. I want that. It was just great marketing.
It's in the Ottawa Museum now.
What's that?
The iPod. It's in the Science and Technology Museum.
Sure, like it rightfully should.
Whoa.
It's wild to me because it's getting to that time now where like technology is advancing so quickly that when I think
of mine,
your phone is so loud.
It's held together by tape. It still works. I turned it.
Yeah.
I turned it on.
I have one too.
You have
It's still-
a
it still turns
solid
on.
piece of history. A
Oh,
solid
yeah.
piece of history.
Like, I still have an original Game Boy Color, and that shit still turns on and
Yeah.
functions. And I'm like, no,
That's the other thing. Like, things are made so much more cheaply now. Like, you think of old
Yeah.
technology, and like, I would say old VHS tapes or old camcorder record, like all of those things, some of them still work and are
Oh, yeah.
working well. And then you look at things
Yeah.
now and how fast they break. That is another thing where AI is very, magical in computer. Ooh,
'Cause we don't
but in terms of like
understand it.
physical, yeah, in terms of like physical things, that's another thing with technology is that it's so fast to the point where people would rather make something quick and efficient rather than long lasting.
Well, it's also it's designed to break.
Mhm.
It's made to break within a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
so that your warranty runs out
Yeah.
and you have to buy a new one.
More money.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Yeah.
So I looked up the date of the iPod, 2001. I'm like, oh Jesus Christ!
I was born in 2000, so
Oh Jesus Christ!
yep.
Oh
I just felt like I should mention that.
yeah.
No reason.
Oh, I just felt like more wrinkles just going across my eyes. I'm like, oh.
I remember when my aunt.
Alex, she's also American.
Okay, well,
Okay, whatever.
dual
Don't care about
citizen.
that.
Dual citizen.
Actually, true.
Like all of my family's Canadian, but I did grow up in the
Mm.
States, so.
Okay.
But
Right.
school here was cheaper, so just-
Yeah, you're not paying an arm and leg.
Facts.
Yeah, no. I don't have any student debt.
Perfect.
So thank you, Canada.
Can't go wrong
Thank
with
you,
that.
Canada, for that.
Mm.
So.
Well, there we go. That's the end of our conversation about AI and the future AI and animation.
Yay, I think.
So far it seems like you're very hopeful. You think it's more going to be? It sounds like you're more like look more towards the positive side of things, and maybe it could be a tool rather than something that's going to steal jobs or devastate the landscape or whatever. Like, not the doom and gloom some of us look at. Us jaded older people like, we've been in here too long. We've seen the ways. We've seen what's happened. But no, that's great. I'm optimistic. I'm hoping my optimism beats my jadedness and being like, it's gonna destroy everything. I want to thank you, Jen and Zoe, for talking to me today. It was great.
Of course. It's very fun.
All right.
Thanks for having us on.
Anytime.
Well, that's it. I want to thank our guests for contributing on our journey so far, and I want to thank you, the Phantom listeners, for hearing us ramble around the water cooler. Come check in next time as we talk more about the subject of AI in the animation industry. Let's find out together. Don't forget, keep your eyes on the horizon.
Goodbye. Aborting transmission.